In order to buy a house, I tell my clients, right now in the current situation, if you're looking at a house and you're gonna put like the minimum down, get like FHA or a conventional loan with 3 to 5% down. For the most part, the math is pretty simple. It's like $650 a month for every 100,000 in house. That's ballparking it, right? That does include taxes and insurance. If there's any HOA, that would be added to that monthly payment. Okay, so that's the monthly. So in order to get, like, if you were gonna do, let's say, $500,000 house times 650, so that's what, $3250, right, a month. And in order to qualify for that, you'd have to show double that in income, or over a little bit more than double that. I would probably say closer to $7,200 a month. So that would be, to qualify for that payment, you have to make double, right? And then, so what does it take to get into the house? You need to have at least 2 years of steady employment in the same industry. If you went from chef to salesman, that, unless it's in food, I might be able to make that correlation. But anyway, so 2 years continuous employment. I'm gonna need 2 years rental history and contact information for that. What else am I gonna need? Of course, W-2s, tax returns, pay stubs, bank statements, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, getting into the house, you're gonna have to show on paper that you have at least 8%. 8%, I say 8% because if you're doing an FHA loan, sometimes you're gonna need reserves. So the reserves are the payments, like if it was a full payment, how many months reserves do you need of that payment? Usually if you have a less than 640 FICO, 620 FICO, you might need reserves. So 8%. So continuing with the example, 500,000 in house, 8%. So you get into it for about 40 grand. Okay, so if it's 5% down, if it's, you could do possibly 3% down if you have a high credit score. And closing costs would be somewhere in the realm of 2 to 3% of the value of the home. That's usually ballpark the way the math works out. Now, the process. So after you've sent in all your documents, like I said, we can do a real topical, conversation tomorrow over Zoom. But after you've sent in all your documents and, we can verify employment, et cetera, then I'll submit your paperwork to a lender, to a couple different lenders, and see if I can get what's called DU approval. DU approval means that I've sent your paperwork and your loan scenario into, let me close this sunroof, into a bank, and they've said, yeah, we can do it. From what we see, we can do it. So once I have DU approval, we start shopping. So you start shopping for a house. So the way that I tell my clients right now is that if you're in the market for, let's say, a $500,000 home, I need you to be shopping at around $450,000. The market is cooling off a little bit, but if you love the house, somebody else loves the house. Like the one that we just saw on, was it Soria? So if you love the house, somebody else is going to love the house too. The reason I say if your max is 500 and you're comfortable with a $500,000 mortgage payment, then because of overbidding, I start at 450. We've had clients that get overbid $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So when I say that, like, imagine the house, let's say it's listed for 500K. There are people that have large sums of cash in the bank, and they'll come along and say, you know what, I'll give you 550, and if the appraisal comes in under that amount, I'll cover the difference, right? So that would be on top of the 8% I had mentioned earlier. So for the house now, let's say, it's a $500,000 home. Let's say you send an offer at 550, and then you say, you know what, I will pay the difference, which is what I'm going to encourage you to say. The way that the contract is written, for some agents, the way some agents write the contract, if the appraisal comes in under that 550 mark, you would have to come out of pocket that extra 50 grand, right? So let's say let's say it's us. So it's kind of hard to explain right now because I haven't gone through the whole process. But let's say we're in that situation and we're under contract for the property for, let's say, $550, and the house was worth $500, and we get the appraisal, and the appraisal comes in at $500, right? And so there's a $50,000 gap. You would have to pay the difference, or we could cancel, and you would get to keep, your money. You don't lose any money. Once you start shopping, I'm trying to prep you for what's going on in the market expectations, stuff like that. The market is crazy right now. What I've been seeing a lot of is people are bidding up houses, and then when the appraisal comes back, they'll cancel. And then the listing agent will go back to the people that made strong offers. When I say strong offers, I need you to think about, yes, the contract that we're writing, the offer we're writing on the house, as well as financing information. So if we're going to get a loan, we need to show them the DU approval that I have, a pre-qual letter from me so they can call me directly, as well as proof of funds from you that you can close. So let me turn this off real quick. So proof of funds from you that you would close. So if it is, $500,000 house, and you say, I'll overbid by 50 grand and I'll cover the difference, then you would have to show, that 8%, which is about 40 grand, plus the 50 grand that would be the appraisal, the difference in appraisal. So that's how we would get our offers accepted. You send the offer, the pre-approval letter, proof of funds, and the DU approval into the listing agent, and then I call them and say, hey, how you doing? I am a realtor. I do work with a team of agents. I'm familiar with Escondido. I live in Valley Center. Mom's on El Norte Parkway. And my other agent's down in Claremont. I'm originally from Chula Vista, et cetera, et cetera. But this next part is going over the process. So when you go out shopping, you're going to be shopping for $30,000 to $50,000 under your max. Okay, so then when, let's say we go this weekend and you fall in love with 3 houses. So you fall in love with 3 houses, we see 5, you fall in love with 3, so you make 3 offers, right? So we send the 3 offers, and come Monday, because, agents are going to wait for all the offers to get accepted, or to get turned in, like Monday, Tuesday, they'll get back to everybody. So with that, come Monday, Tuesday, let's say we get all 3 of our offers accepted, because we packaged them up real nice and we sent them to the agents, and the agents are very, they like seeing that you got money, and they like seeing you got, a lender that'll communicate. So from that, we get 3 offers accepted. Now, this is basically day 1 of escrow. So what would occur then is you would be within 3 days of the first day of escrow, you need to send in an earnest money deposit. The earnest money deposit is 1% of the value of the home. Okay, so if it's a $500,000 house, you're sending in $5,000. If you want to be more aggressive, I would, and you can afford it, I would suggest that. So if you can put down 10, if you can put down 15, that'd be great. 15 would be the max. I don't want you to put down more than 3%. Okay, so we put down, let's say, if you can afford, I've seen people hold 2, 3 houses in escrow at a time, but the thing is you're gonna pay for earnest money deposit, and then you have to pay for appraisal, which is $600. And then there's also the inspection, which is recommended but not required. So that usually is between $500 and $600, depending on how you use. I know my guy is somewhere in there like $450 for the smaller the house, the cheaper it is. The bigger the house, the more expensive. Anyway, so you can hold all the houses in escrow, but I would recommend just picking one and running with it. So we send on Monday. You get the wire instructions. The escrow company will call you. And escrow's job, escrow is a company, escrow is also the process, right? So escrow's job is to reconcile all debts and fulfill all contractual obligations. So bear reading the contract just the way we wrote it. Okay, so within 3 days, you send in the $5,000. So now escrow has the $5,000, we're gonna call it EMD, earnest money deposit. So you're gonna hear me say contingency periods a lot. Contingency period, contingency period. So contingency periods mean that we cannot close the deal unless something happens. Now, The deal has 3 contingencies, okay? We are waiving a few to make our offers a little bit more desirable, okay? So let's say, so there's 3 contingencies. So the first one is the appraisal. Like, so in the offer, it says, in the contract, it says that this offer is contingent on the house appraising at the value listed as the purchase price. So, you know, that contractor speak or legalese for, you know, it's got to come in at the contract price. So if it doesn't, we can cancel. Now, what we can do is we can put in an appraisal waiver. That's what I was talking about earlier. We can put up an appraisal waiver with no limit and just say, like, whatever the difference is, I'll pay it, which is usually not that much. But, you know, we can also put an appraisal waiver with a limit up to $523,000. You know, the difference will pay you, you know, if it's a, let me rephrase that. So let's say it's listed at 500, you know, we make an offer at 550, we'll say, what if we say we'll cover the difference up to 20 grand? That would be an appraisal waiver with a limit, okay? So that's one contingency. So in a regular contract, if the appraisal doesn't come in at the contract price, we can cancel, okay? But because of the market, we're writing in appraisal waivers. It's up to you, you know, once we talk about money, if you want to do it with a limit, with no limit, how much limit, etc. Now the other contingency is, so you got appraisal, you got inspection. So typically it's a 17-day contingency period. I try to write my contracts like a 14-day because it makes it more desirable, and I'll explain why. So you have basically 2 weeks to investigate the property. We bring an inspector. If you want to pull permits, if you want to do all that stuff, that's on you. Okay, I can help you as much as I can. I can give you the San Diego permit website. I can, you know, we can look at county tax information. We're going to pull title, etc. So if there's something fishy and you don't like the way, you know, it's looking, you have 17 days per contract, but we're going to write it with a shorter period just so that it's more desirable for the seller. Now, so to get you in the door. So let's say like it's a 14-day contingency period, and you know 14 days comes up, and then, you know, am I going to lose my money? No, because if you don't sign a contingency release, you can cancel and they'll send you back your earnest money deposit within like 3 days. Okay, so within the 17-day contingency period, for any reason whatsoever, okay, I want to emphasize that, for any reason whatsoever, if you cancel within the 17-day contingency period, you get your money back. Okay, so so we do the inspection, and so now the inspector comes by. So now we're talking about inspection contingencies. So an inspector comes by, you pay him $400 to $500. His job is to make the house look like garbage on paper. Okay, you know, when my wife and I, we bought our house, she cried during the inspection, or when she got the inspection report, because it's to make the house look like garbage on paper. Okay, so the inspector's going to come out, he's going to say there's something wrong with the roof, the plumbing looks weird. You know, he's not going to give very specifics. He's a very general home inspector. So then we're going to bring out a roofer and we're going to bring out a plumber. Each one of those guys is going to cost you $200 to $300 because, you know, they don't know if they're going to get the job. So they're going to charge you $200 to $300 to get a quote. They're going to go around and be, okay, this is weird with the plumbing, this is weird with the roof, blah, blah, blah. Right? So each one of those guys, $200 to $300. And this is all happening within that 17 days. So let's say each one of the guys comes up with the quote of like $5 grand worth of work. You know, there's stuff going on, weird stuff with the plumbing and weird stuff with the roof. So it's $5 grand each. So a total of 10 grand. So what we do is we're going to go through the inspection report, and you and I will have discussed it, or you and the agent or whoever it is that, you know, we're doing the deal with. I'm going to be around anyway, but we'll go through the inspection report, and I'll explain, you know, that's not a big deal. Water pressure, that's a YouTube video. You know, the sensors on the garage, that's a YouTube video. It's not a big deal. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through it all. And we're going to talk about what's a deal killer, what is, you know, a non-starter. So if for some reason there's something in there, you know, that really needs to get done, for example, like GFCI near the counter, it's a couple bucks, they can do it. You know, I don't want the whole house to short when I get water on the outlet. So, you know, we'll ask them for that. Now we're gonna make a laundry list of stuff, like, 50, 80 items, and in there will be items that you and I have already deemed important, okay? So we're gonna send over the list, the quotes, and the inspection report, and we're gonna tell the seller, or the seller's agent, hey, I'm gonna play like a little song and dance and explain to the seller's agent, hey, they're really nervous. There's they're first time buyers or stuff they weren't really expecting, and you and I already know what we need to get done. So he's gonna flip out, or she's gonna flip out and be all upset. All my years I've never seen a request for repairs like this, blah blah blah. And I'll be like, hey, you know what? My buyer, they find, they're really concerned about all this stuff, but if I can get X, Y, and Z done, I think I can sell them on it. And then, she'll go to her and be like, oh, this is what's important, and then we'll get what's important done. Now, the cost of the repairs for the plumbing and the roof. So that's gonna be a thing. So like, let's say it's called credit, right? So we're gonna call it, you can either have them pay for a handyman or a contractor to do it. We can even get a contractor of our choice to do it, but typically what I do is I will recommend that you put that money towards closing costs if you're short on funds. So let's say, it's $10,000, we request $10,000 per contract. The seller doesn't have to do anything. There are no contractual obligations for that. The seller has to do anything beyond what is required by like the government, and that's very little. Okay, so the seller doesn't have to do any repairs. I don't care if the sink is leaking. I don't care if the roof is leaking. The seller doesn't have to do anything. That's why it's a request for repairs that we're gonna send them, right? So we send them the request for repairs, and we send them the invoices or the estimates, and they're gonna say, if it's me, I'm gonna be like, no, I already have 2 other offers behind you. I don't need to give you any credit. Most people are nicer than me, so they usually give us credit. I tell my clients we get about half. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. So we ask for, if I bring my plumber out there and be like, hey dude, send me a big inflated quote. Or if I take my roofer out, I'm like, hey, give me an inflated quote so the listing agents, can give me some more money. Okay, so that's the inspection. So the seller has to come to agreement to that, and what they're gonna fix, we make them fix it if we want them to fix it. If not, we'll say, send us the credit, or we'll hire our own contractor. If you're confused by that, because I explained it confusing, feel free to ask me more about that, take a note. But okay, so what's the next one? So next one, you have the loan contingency. So the loan contingency really isn't a big deal. Okay, by this time, if I have DU, I should have the loan under wraps. I need you to not inquire about any credit. Don't pull your credit. Don't get another credit card. Don't get into more debt. Don't go get a card. Don't apply for Home Depot cards. Don't get furniture. No large purchases. Just leave your social alone while we're in escrow. I don't have any water. But anyway, so if for some reason the loan doesn't work, if for some reason, I screwed it all up, which doesn't happen, or like you quit your job, like I can fix it, but I need a heads up of what's going to go on. Anything that's going on in your life financially, with credit, like stuff like that, we're going to find out about. It's going to come out. I had a client that didn't tell me that he had a $6 million lien on his credit from when he was like 25 and he didn't pay something. You know what I mean? So it'll come out. So if the loan is good, we can release contingencies. So let's say that's day, let's call it 14, because I want a short close, because we're going to be aggressive, right? We're going to close in 21 days, because everybody else is going to close in 30 to 45 days. So it's day 14. I say, all right, Kevin, or I say, all right, Mr. Homebuyer, Mr. and Mrs. Homebuyer, are you ready to continue? We're going to sign this, because the inspection, we figured out how much we're going to get for credit. They're not going to fix anything. They're going to give us $5,000 worth of credit, and you're going to put that towards your credit, your closing costs, or you're going to take that $5,000 and we hire a contractor of our choosing to do the job. Okay, you can be your buddy, you can be my buddy, whatever. But we don't want them to do it, because if they get Tom from down the street to, his day job, he's an accountant, moonlights as a plumber, I don't want that. So we choose. And then, so we did the appraisal, and the appraisal, Let's take, for example, the appraisal that we just closed yesterday or the day before. The property was listed at 800. They took an offer for 830. That wasn't our offer, but we were willing to go that high. And then they called us 2 weeks later, and the appraisal came in at 800, and the buyer quit because they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to come out of pocket of 30 grand. So because we know how to do our job, we waited, we extended a couple weeks. It wasn't a 21-day escrow, it was like a 24-day escrow, but we had to extend it to wait for a couple other closings to happen. So then those closings recorded, which raised the value in the neighborhood, which raised the property value of this particular house up to 823, which was our second offer, because, you know, we told them we're not going to cover 830. Now going into it, we know that you guys can't get 830 out of it. What if we do 815? And they said 825, and we said 823. So that's how we came up with 823. And that appraised, and that didn't cost the buyer anything extra beyond down payment and closing costs. So that happens. And then we also got like $11,000 worth of closing costs. It was a big house. There was a major gas issue, but that does happen. So keep that in mind. And then, you know, the loan, once the loan's done, it's usually done like day 7, 8. And that's pretty much it. If you have any weird things you want to talk to me about, I work all the time. I'm pulling up to Home Depot on East Valley. After this, I'm gonna be home. We can set up something for tomorrow. This is a long video, but that's pretty much how long my spiel is. My spiel is normally like 45 minutes. So if you have any questions, let me know. Talk to you later.